Chapter 5. The Final Confrontation. The heavy doors of the great hall slammed shut behind Gregor, sealing him inside the vampire's lair. The air was thick with the scent of ancient stone and dried blood. Torches flickered along the massive pillars, casting eerie shadows that danced like specters on the walls. At the far end of the hall, atop a raised platform, stood Darius. The vampire lord looked more formidable than ever. His form was tall and statuesque, his once pale skin now tinged with an unnatural, marbled sheen. The red glow in his eyes burned like embers, and his lips curled into a knowing smirk. "Gregor," Darius intoned, his voice echoing across the chamber. "You should not have come, but you already knew that." Gregor tightened his grip on his sword. "I came to finish this. No more running, no more hiding. This ends tonight." Darius chuckled, stepping forward, his black cloak billowing behind him. "And yet you still do not understand, do you? This is not your story. This is my story. And you are merely its tragic end." From the shadows behind him, more figures emerged. Vampires, their eyes gleaming like daggers in the dim light. They moved with unnatural grace, their fangs bared in anticipation. Gregor could hear the soft hiss of their breath, the rustle of their robes as they closed in. But he had expected this. With a swift motion, Gregor reached into his coat and pulled out a small glass vial. A silver liquid shimmered inside, holy water mixed with powdered hawthorn and crushed vampire bone. He hurled it to the ground. The vial shattered, releasing a blinding burst of light. The vampires screeched, recoiling from the searing brightness, their skins sizzling where the mist touched them. Gregor did not waste the moment. He lunged at Darius. The vampire lord was fast, unnaturally fast. He twisted away, his long fingers slashing through the air, narrowly missing Gregor's throat. Gregor pivoted, swinging his blade in a precise arc, but Darius parried with his own sword, the clash of steel ringing through the chamber. The battle had begun. Blades met again and again, sparks flying with every strike. Gregor could feel his muscles burning, his breath growing ragged. But he pushed forward. Darius fought with an elegance that belied his monstrous nature, every movement precise and deadly. Around them, the surviving vampires recovered from the holy water's effects and began circling. Gregor knew he could not fight them all, not alone. And then the great doors burst open. A deafening howl split the air as the werewolf pack charged into the chamber. Behind them, vampire hunters wielding crossbows and silver-tipped spears followed, their war cries filling the hall. The battle had become a war. Gregor barely had time to process the shift before Darius struck again. The force of the blow sent him crashing into a stone pillar. Pain flared through his ribs, but he gritted his teeth and forced himself to stand. "You cannot win," Darius sneered, "even with your allies." Gregor spat blood. "We'll see about that." The hall descended into chaos. Hunters clashed with vampires, silver and steel flashing in the dim light. The werewolves tore through their undead foes, their claws rending flesh and bone. Screams of agony and fury echoed through the fortress. Gregor and Darius dueled through the battlefield, their fight untouched by the surrounding carnage. Every blow was met with a counter, every strike with a dodge. But Gregor was tiring. Darius was relentless, his strength seemingly endless. Then the vampire lord made a mistake. Overconfident, he lunged, aiming to rip Gregor's throat out with his claws. But Gregor twisted at the last second, bringing his blade up in a deadly arc. The silver edge sliced through Darius's chest, deep enough to wound but not to kill. Darius stumbled back, his hand clutching the wound. For the first time, his confident smirk wavered. Gregor pressed the attack. He slashed again, forcing Darius to retreat step by step. The vampire's speed was faltering, his movements losing their precision. "This is impossible," Darius hissed, his red eyes blazing with fury. "You were never invincible," Gregor growled. Summoning his remaining strength, he drove his sword straight through Darius's heart. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Darius's crimson eyes widened in shock. His lips parted as if to speak, but no words came. A single strangled breath escaped him before his body began to crumble to dust. The battle around them ceased. The vampires shrieked in horror as their master fell. Some tried to flee, but the hunters and werewolves cut them down. The survivors vanished into the shadows, retreating into the night. Gregor stood over the pile of ashes that had once been Darius. His breath came in ragged gasps. His hands trembled. It was over. The aftermath was eerily quiet. The surviving hunters gathered, tending to the wounded. The werewolves howled one last time, a mournful yet victorious cry. The fortress, once a place of darkness and horror, now stood silent. Gregor felt an odd emptiness settle within him. He had won. He had avenged those lost. But he knew this was not truly the end. Evil always found a way to return. As the first light of dawn touched the horizon, he turned away from the ruins. There was still work to be done, but for now at least the nightmare was over. End of the story.